The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets overhead as Robert slammed the report card onto Mr. Harlan's desk, the red F glaring up like a fresh wound. "You think you can just erase me like this? After everything, after I poured my soul into that essay on Baldwin, on how Go Tell It on the Mountain rips the hypocrisy out of America's gut. You're not failing a paper, John. You're failing me." John's eyes, those piercing blue ones that always seemed to see too much, flickered with something raw guilt, maybe, or the ghost of a desire he'd buried deeper than his tenure at Lincoln High. He leaned back in his creaky chair, the Chicago wind howling outside the window, and whispered, "You don't understand, Robert. If I pass you, it'll destroy us both." Robert stormed out of the classroom, his sneakers squeaking against the linoleum floor of Lincoln High's third-floor corridor. The school, a hulking brick behemoth on the south side of Chicago, felt like a pressure cooker that afternoon, kids shouting in the halls, lockers slamming like punctuation to their chaos. But Robert's world had narrowed to the size of that single grade, that scarlet letter branding him inadequate in the eyes of the one man whose opinion he'd come to crave more than his own father's approval. John Harlan, the English teacher with the Ivy League drawl and the closet full of skeletons, who lectured on queer icons like Auden and Whitman with a fire that made Robert's pulse race, only to douse it with this calculated cruelty. He'd known something was off since the first day of senior year. John Mr. Harlan, always Mr. Harlan in class, had lingered too long on Robert's essays, his pen hovering like he was afraid to commit. "Your voice," he'd say, voice low during after-school office hours. "It's got this rhythm, like jazz spilling over the page. But rhythm without structure. It's just noise." Robert would nod, heat rising in his cheeks, because those sessions in the cramped office, surrounded by dog-eared copies of Giovanni's Room and faded posters of Harlem Renaissance poets, felt like stolen moments in a life where everything else was scripted by poverty and prejudice. Robert was 18, built like the wide receiver he was on the football team, broad shoulders, dark skin glowing under the stadium lights, a smile that could disarm the toughest coaches. But beneath the athlete's swagger was a kid who'd grown up in an Englewood row house, dodging gang tags on his walk to school, dreaming of scholarships to escape the cycle his single mom was trapped in. Literature was his lifeline, the one place where his queerness didn't feel like a liability. He'd come out to his best friend last year, after a fumbling kiss at a house party that tasted like cheap beer and possibility. But telling the world, that was a bridge too far, especially in a city where black boys like him were already targets. John, on the other hand, was the golden boy turned cautionary tale. 35, with salt and pepper hair that he wore tousled like he didn't care, and a jawline that spoke of old money and older regrets. He'd come to Lincoln High 5 years ago from some elite prep school in Boston, fleeing a scandal that the faculty whispered about in the lounge, something about an inappropriate relationship with a student, hushed up by connections and cash. Here, in the gritty heart of Chicago, he was supposed to redeem himself, molding young minds in the shadow of the L train's rumble. But Robert had seen the cracks, the way John's gaze lingered during dissections of Forster's Maurice, his voice catching on lines about hidden loves. It was electric, dangerous, and Robert had leaned into it, submitting essays laced with subtext that only they would catch. Now, that F. It wasn't just a grade, it was a wall slamming down. Robert punched the exit door open, the November chill slapping his face like a betrayal. The sky over Lake Michigan was bruised purple, fat raindrops starting to fall as he cut across the parking lot toward the bus stop. His phone buzzed. Texts from his mom, asking about dinner, from his teammate Marcus, hyping Friday's game against West Side. He ignored them all, replaying John's whisper, "It'll destroy us both." What the hell did that mean? Us. As if there was an us beyond the classroom fantasies Robert had spun in the dead of night. Back inside, John slumped at his desk, the report card mocking him from the blotter. His hands trembled as he lit a cigarette. Contraband in the building. But who cared? The kids were gone. The halls echoing empty. He'd graded Robert's final essay that morning, a blistering analysis of identity in Invisible Man. And it was brilliant, raw, urgent, alive. A solid A. Easy. But passing it would mean recommending Robert for that elite writing program at Northwestern. The one with scouts from New York publishers sniffing around. And that would drag everything into the light. The late nights tutoring. The brushes of hands over shared books. The way John's heart hammered when Robert quoted Baldwin with that fire in his eyes. John wasn't blind to the optics. A white teacher. A black student. Accusations of favoritism would fly faster than the rain now sheeting the windows. But it was deeper than that. Last summer, after a faculty mixer lubricated by too much bourbon, John had confessed to his colleague, Sarah, about the pull he felt. "He's not just smart, Sarah. He's seeing me. The real me. The one I hid away after Boston." She'd warned him then, eyes wide, "John, you're playing with fire. He's a kid. And you're." She didn't finish, but the word hung there, fragile. John's last relationship, a brief affair with a fellow teacher in Boston, had ended in whispers and a payout to keep quiet. Here, he was celibate by choice. His apartment a shrine to solitude, bookshelves groaning under classics, a single photo of his late sister on the mantel. He stubbed out the cigarette, guilt twisting like a knife. Failing Robert wasn't protection. It was cowardice. But tomorrow, he'd fix it. Somehow. The next morning, Robert skipped homeroom, nursing a coffee in the bleachers overlooking the empty football field. Fog clung to the turf, the goalposts like skeletal fingers against the gray dawn. Marcus found him there, clapping a hand on his shoulder. "Yo, Rob, you look like shit. Coach gonna bench you if you mope." Robert forced a grin. "Nah, man. Just that English paper. Harlan's got it out for me." Marcus snorted, lacing up his cleats for early practice. "Harlan? The hot prof with the broody stare? Thought you two were tight. Remember that time he stayed late to watch tape with you? Said your footwork was poetic or some shit." Robert's stomach flipped. Poetic. Yeah, that was code. Or at least he'd hoped. By lunch, the rumor mill was churning. Someone had overheard the slam of the door yesterday, pieced it with the grapevine about Robert's special attention from Harlan. Whispers in the cafeteria. Bet that F's 'cause the teacher's jelly of his swag. Worse. Or maybe it's 'cause Rob's too busy flirting to study. Robert's fork clattered against his tray. Flirting? He'd been careful, always the student, never crossing the line. But the accusation stung because it echoed his own fears. That afternoon, office hours. Robert didn't plan it, but his feet carried him there anyway, the door ajar like an invitation. John looked up from a stack of quizzes, surprise softening his features. "Robert. I didn't expect. Fix it." Robert cut in, voice steel. "Give me the grade I earned. Or tell me why you're burying me." John stood, rounding the desk, close enough that Robert caught the scent of his aftershave, sandalwood, and regret. It's not that simple. The essay was outstanding, but if I bump it, the principal's sniffing around. She's got eyes on me since. Well, you know the stories. Robert's laugh was bitter. Stories? Like you're some predator? Man, if that's what you think this is, no. John's hand shot out, gripping Robert's arm. Not hard, but firm, electric. Time stuttered. Their eyes locked, breaths mingling in the narrow space. It's not what I think. It's what they'd say. About you. About us. There it was again. Robert pulled away, heart thundering. There is no us, Mr. Harlan. Just a kid who thought his teacher gave a damn. He turned to leave, but John's voice stopped him, soft as the rain pattering the window. Wait. Please. Let me explain. Over coffee, after school. Neutral ground. Robert hesitated, the hallway clock ticking like a bomb. Neutral ground. In Chicago, with its endless winters and hidden hurts, what ground was ever neutral? But those blue eyes, cracked open, pleading, pulled him back. Fine. The diner on Halsted. 6 sharp. As Robert walked away, John's exhale was a prayer. He'd meant to end it, to sever the thread before it unraveled them both. But now he was chasing the fray. The windy diner glowed like a beacon that evening, neon sign flickering against the sleet-slick streets. Robert slid into a booth by the window, nursing a root beer float, his knee bouncing under the formica table. The place was a relic, checkered floors, jukebox crooning Motown classics, waitresses in starched aprons calling everyone Han. It felt safe, almost, until John walked in, shaking rain from his coat, scanning the room until his gaze landed. Relief, then wariness. He slid in opposite, ordering black coffee with a murmur. Silence stretched, broken only by the sizzle of the grill. I failed you on purpose, John started, voice low. To protect you from me. From this. He gestured vaguely between them, fingers brushing the sugar shaker. Robert leaned forward, eyes narrowing. This? You mean the way you look at me when no one's watching? Like I'm not just another black kid in your class, but someone who matters. John's flush was visible even under the diner's warm lights. God, Robert, you're not another anything. You're brilliant, fierce, and yeah, beautiful. But I'm your teacher. 35 to your 18. White to your. Everything they see when they look at you wrong. The words hung heavy, laced with truths Robert had skirted. Beauty. John had said it aloud. Robert's throat tightened. So what? You think I can't handle it? That I'm some fragile flower waiting to be plucked? John's laugh was rueful. No. I think you're a force. And that's why it scares me. Because if we cross this line, even in thought, the world's waiting to crucify us both. Me for the power imbalance. You for existing. They talked for hours, the diner emptying around them. John opened up about Boston, the affair that wasn't quite, a mutual crush with a senior boy that ended in tears and expulsion threats, his sister's death from cancer that sent him spiraling west. Robert shared fragments. His mom's endless shifts at the hospital, the fear of coming out in a house of prayer, the football field as his confessional. By closing time, The air between them hummed with unspoken promises. "Change the grade," Robert said finally, standing to leave. "And let's see what happens next." John nodded, eyes shining. "Okay. But slow. Promise me." Robert's smile was a spark in the dark. Slow as the L train at rush hour. As they parted under the awning, rain sluicing the gutters, neither saw the figure in the shadows across the street. Sarah, John's colleague, phone in hand, snapping a photo. The first thread of betrayal, invisible but tightening. Winter clamped down on Chicago like a vice, turning the city into a monochrome dream of ice-rimed streets and breath-fogged windows. Robert's grade changed overnight, a gleaming A etched in the system, whispers of lucky break rippling through the halls. But luck had nothing to do with it. In the weeks that followed, the office hours evolved into something clandestine, a ritual of annotated poems exchanged like love letters. John's Ford Focus idling in the school lot for extra credit drives to the lakeshore. It started innocently enough. One Friday after practice, Robert found a note slipped into his locker. "Meet me at the Adler Planetarium. 8 p.m. Bring your thoughts on the fire next time. J." The planetarium, perched on the museum campus, was a dome of wonders under the stars, or what passed for stars in a light-polluted sky. Robert arrived bundled in his parka, Baldwin's essays tucked under his arm, nerves jangling like loose change. John was waiting by the entrance, 2 tickets in hand, his scarf a slash of crimson against the black wool coat. "Thought we'd see the universe expand," he said, a shy grin cracking his usual reserve. "Makes our problems feel small." Inside, the dome swallowed them whole, projected galaxies swirling overhead, a narrator's voice intoning about black holes and infinite voids. They sat shoulder to shoulder on the bench, the darkness a cocoon. When Robert's hand brushed John's during a particularly vivid supernova, neither pulled away. Instead, fingers laced, tentative at first, then sure. Afterward, they walked the frosted paths along the lake, wind whipping off the water like a siren's call. "This," Robert breathed, gesturing to the glittering skyline, "this is what I want. Not just words on a page, but moments like this." John stopped, turning to face him, the city lights haloing his profile. "Moments like what, Robert?" The question was a dare. Robert stepped closer, heart a drumbeat. "Like this." He rose on his toes, damn his height for once, and pressed his lips to John's. It was clumsy, urgent, tasting of hot chocolate from the cafe and the salt of lake spray. John's hands framed Robert's face, thumbs tracing jawlines as if memorizing. When they broke apart, gasping, John's whisper was fierce. "We shouldn't," but his eyes said the opposite, and Robert pulled him back, deeper into the shadows of a pavilion, where the kiss bloomed into exploration, hands under coats, breaths mingling in the cold. They didn't go further that night. John drove him home, the silence companionable, charged. At the row house steps, Robert lingered. "My mom's working doubles. You could come in." John's laugh was pained. Tempting. But not yet. "Slow. Remember." Robert nodded, but as he watched the taillights fade, a thrill coiled in his gut. Possibility, laced with peril. School became a minefield of stolen glances. In class, John's lectures on The Great Gatsby took on new layers: obsession, unattainable dreams, his eyes flicking to Robert like a secret code. Robert aced every assignment, his writing sharper, infused with the fire of their hidden world. Football practices blurred into a haze. Coach barked about focus, but Robert's mind was elsewhere, replaying the planetarium's dark embrace. Then came Thanksgiving break. John's invitation arrived via text. A first, risky but exhilarating, families in Boston. Cabin up in Wisconsin, just us, books, and a fire. Say yes. Robert's mom, exhausted from ER shifts, waved him off with a hug. Go chase those dreams, baby. Just text me. The cabin was a rustic A-frame off Highway 12, snow blanketing the pines like powdered sugar. They arrived at dusk. John's old Jeep crunching gravel, the air crisp with wood smoke. Inside, it was a haven, stone fireplace crackling, shelves of pulp paperbacks, a kitchen stocked with takeout provisions. They cooked spaghetti clumsily, wine loosening tongues. Over dinner, John shared more, his queerness unearthed in college. A fumbling romance with a roommate that ended in heartbreak. The closet he'd built brick by brick. Teaching was my out, he said, swirling Merlot. Molding minds without touching hearts. Until you, Robert reached across the table, tracing John's knuckles. I'm not a heart you mold. I'm the one who breaks yours open. The words ignited something primal. They migrated to the rug by the fire, clothes shedding like old skins. John's lean frame marked by faded scars from a childhood accident. Robert's athletic build a map of strength and vulnerability. Their lovemaking was tentative at first, reverent, kisses trailing collarbones, hands learning curves and hollows. Then fervent, bodies arching in the firelight, gasps echoing off log walls. Afterward, tangled in quilts, Robert's head on John's chest, listening to the steady thump beneath his ear. This is real, he murmured. Us. John's fingers combed his curls. Real as the snow outside. But fragile. They spent the weekend in a bubble, hikes through drifts, debating wolf over cocoa, nights blurring into dawn. On the drive back, Robert's hand on John's thigh, the world intruded via a voicemail. Sarah, John's colleague, voice tight. John, we need to talk. About photos. And Robert, betrayal's shadow fell swift. Back in Chicago, John confronted her in the faculty lounge. Door shut. Sarah paced. Phone clutched like evidence. I saw you too. At the diner. And I told Principal Reyes. Not to hurt you, but she's asking questions about grades. About favoritism. It's spiraling. John's blood ran cold. You photographed us? Why? Her eyes welled. Because I care. You're spiraling, John. He's a student. Black, queer, God. The scrutiny. I thought exposure would stop it before it destroys you. Destroy. The word echoed John's fears. He stormed out, finding Robert at practice, pulling him aside under the bleachers. Sarah knows. Saw us. Told the principal. Robert's face drained of color. What? How? Doesn't matter. We need to lay low. No more meetings. Robert's fists clenched. Lay low? Like we're ashamed? John, this is bullshit. I thought we were in it together. John's plea was desperate. We are. But if this blows up, it's your future, scholarship, college gone. Not mine. The accusation landed like a slap. Robert's voice cracked. So I'm the collateral? The black kid you fuck and protect by hiding? He shoved past, leaving John in the gathering dusk, alone with the weight of his choices. The fallout simmered. Principal Reyes called Robert in. Her office a sterile box of fluorescent doubt. Mr. Ellis, concerns about academic integrity. Extra help from Mr. Harlan, it's raised flags. Robert sat ramrod straight, lies flowing smooth. Just tutoring, ma'am. For the writing program. She nodded, unconvinced, but let him go with a warning. Be careful, son. Perceptions matter. Perceptions. They poisoned everything. At home, Robert's mom noticed his silence, the way he picked at meals. What's eating you, Rob? He shrugged, throat tight. Coming out to her now. With this mess? Impossible. Instead, he buried in books, channeling rage into a new essay on betrayal in Native Son, writes fury a mirror to his own. John, meanwhile, drowned in isolation. His apartment echoed with ghosts, empty wine glasses, unanswered calls from Robert. He drafted a resignation letter, fingers hovering over send, but pride or fear held him back. One night, buzzed on scotch, he texted, I miss you. This silence is killing me. Robert's reply, good. Feel what I feel. Christmas loomed, a farce of lights and forced cheer. Robert's team won the city championship, the field a roar of confetti and hugs, but his smile was hollow, John's absence a void in the stands. Post-game party at Marcus's, beer flowing, bodies grinding to trap beats. A girl from chem class cornered him, lips parted invitingly. You single, Rob, let's make this night epic. He kissed her, desperate for normalcy, but it tasted wrong, flat, obligatory. He pulled away, mumbling excuses, fleeing to the porch where snowflakes melted on his lashes. There, his phone lit up, John, uninvited, parked down the block. Saw the game on the local news. Drove over before I could stop myself. Robert's heart lurched. You shouldn't be here, but he was already moving, sliding into the passenger seat, the car a warm cave against the cold. I fucked up, John said, voice raw. Pushed you away to save us, but it just broke us. Robert's hand found his. Then fix it. Fight for this. John's kiss was apology and fire. Right there in the shadowed street. Risks be damned. But as they parted, headlights swept past. A cop car. Slow. Lingering. Paranoia spiked. Was it nothing, or the beginning of the end? The new year dawned brittle. January's grip turning Chicago into a frozen labyrinth. Robert and John navigated their secret with the precision of fugitives. Texts encrypted in literary quotes. Meetings in neutral zones like the Art Institute's quiet galleries, where they could lose themselves in Hopper's lonely figures and pretend the world outside didn't exist. But the cracks were widening. Principal Reyes's investigation dragged on. Interviews with students yielding vague suspicions. Harlan's always had a soft spot for Ellis. Sarah, racked with guilt, avoided John's gaze in the lounge. Her silence a heavier accusation than words. Robert threw himself into applications. The Northwestern portfolio his North Star. His essays sang now, infused with the ache of half-lived love, metaphors of shadowed embraces, identities forged in fire. John read drafts in stolen moments, his feedback a caress. This isn't just writing, Robert, it's confession. And it was. Late one night, holed up in John's apartment for the first time, a loft in Wicker Park, exposed brick and exposed nerves, Robert finally voiced it. I'm scared. Not of us, but of losing everything if this comes out. Mom, team, future. They were on the couch. Fire crackling. John's arm around his shoulders. I know. Me too. But hiding, it's eating us alive. That night marked a shift. Vulnerability birthed boldness. They made love with the lights on. Bodies a landscape of trust. John tracing the constellation of freckles on Robert's back. Robert mapping the tension in John's shoulders with lips and hands. You're mine, Robert whispered in the afterglow, fierce as a vow. John pulled him close. And you're my redemption. Words like that, tossed in the quiet, felt like gospel. But redemption's path is rarely straight. February brought the school's Black History Month assembly, a mandatory affair in the auditorium, banners fluttering with icons from Tubman to Obama. John was slated to speak on literature as resistance. His prep notes a tapestry of Baldwin, Hughes, and Lord. Robert watched from the front row, pride swelling as John took the stage, voice steady, weaving tales of words as weapons against erasure. Then, the Q&A. A sophomore, bold and unfiltered, raised her hand. Mr. Harlan, how do you, a white guy, teach our stories without colonizing them? The room tensed, a ripple of murmurs. John's pause was heartbeat long. I don't teach your stories. I amplify the voices already there. Like Robert Ellis's work, his take on Ellison last semester, it gutted me, showed me truths I couldn't access alone. I turned to Robert, spotlight hot. He forced a nod, but inside, panic flared. Amplifying. Was that code? Or just praise gone public? Whispers followed him to the locker room. Marcus clapped his back. Dude, Harlan name-dropped you. That's props. But others leered. Bet he's got a crush. Teachers pet much. Robert laughed it off. But the seed of doubt sprouted thorns. That evening, over takeout pho in John's loft, Robert confronted it. You put me out there today. Like bait. John's fork paused midair. Bait? Robert, I was highlighting your talent. It's what mentors do. The word mentor landed wrong. A demotion from lover. Mentor? Is that what we are now? Back to safe labels? John's frustration boiled over. What do you want me to say? In front of the whole school? Robert's my boyfriend. And his essays make me weak-kneed? Sarcasm masked hurt. But Robert recoiled. No. But don't pretend. We're more than this. The argument escalated. Voices rising over the hum of the radiator. Accusations of recklessness. Of cowardice. John slammed a hand on the coffee table. You think I want this cage? Every day, I fight the urge to shout it from the rooftops. But one wrong move, and you're the one they drag through the mud. The troubled black kid, seduced by the white devil. Robert's eyes blazed. Don't you dare play the martyr. You're the one with the power, the job to fall back on. I got nothing if this blows. He grabbed his coat, storming into the sleet-lashed night. John's plea, Robert, wait, lost to the wind. Days of radio silence followed, the chasm widening. Robert buried in practice, the gridiron a brutal sacrament, tackles that left bruises mirroring his heart. John graded papers mechanically, sleep evading him in the loft's cavernous quiet. Sarah cornered him one lunch, face ashen. Reyes is calling you in tomorrow. Photos from the diner leaked, anonymous email to the board. It's bad, John. Bad didn't cover it. The meeting was a tribunal. Reyes, the superintendent via Zoom, a union rep with a clipboard. Inappropriate conduct, Mr. Harlan. Evidence suggests a relationship with a minor. John's denial was automatic, scripted, professional only. Tutoring for his portfolio, but the photos, grainy, damning, spoke louder. Reyes's verdict, suspension pending investigation. And Mr. Ellis will need his statement. John texted Robert from the parking lot. Engine idling. Suspended. They know. Meet me at the lake. Please. Robert, in chem lab, felt his phone vibrate like judgment. The lakefront was a wasteland of ice floes and gulls, wind howling dirges. John was there, huddled on a bench, face gaunt. It's over. For me, at least. Robert sat beside him, close but not touching. What do we do? John's laugh was hollow. We? I tainted you. This is my mess. Anger surged. Our mess. You don't get to erase me now. But doubt crept in, whispers from the team, pitying looks from teachers. Was John right? Was he the victim? Robert the fool? The statement came a week later. Reyes's office, a confessional. Tell the truth, son. For your sake. Robert's words were measured. Mr. Harlan helped me write. Nothing more. Lies to shield them both. But each one carved a piece away. Outside, John waited, hope flickering. Thank you. Their hug was brief, desperate bodies remembering what words couldn't mend. Spring teased with thaws, but the chill lingered. The investigation dragged, whispers turning to outright gossip. PTA meetings abuzz, a petition to fire John circulating online. Robert's scholarship interview loomed, a panel of alums probing his personal growth. He aced it, voice steady, but inside, turmoil raged. One night, unable to bear the distance, he slipped into John's loft, key copied in a moment of defiance. John answered shirtless, surprise melting to hunger. Robert, no more words. They collided, a storm of need, bedroom a battlefield of sheets and sighs, reclaiming what the world tried to steal. In the quiet after, John's confession spilled. I love you. God help me. I do. Robert's breath caught. Love. The word was a bridge, rickety but real. I love you too. So we fight. Together, they planned. John's resignation to preempt firing. Robert's portfolio submitted with a nod to the inspiration of an unnamed mentor. Optimism bloomed, fragile as crocuses. But betrayal's blade was double-edged. Sarah, seeking absolution, met Robert in the library stacks. I did it for him. To save you both. Her tears were genuine, but Robert's rage was biblical. Save us? You outed us. To what? Protect your lily-white conscience. She recoiled. It's not like that. The photos. I sent them. Thought exposure would force him to stop before. Before what? Before he loved me back. Robert's voice echoed, drawing stares. He fled, the betrayal a fresh scar. Confronting John that night, she told me, your savior struck again. John's face crumpled. Sarah? Why? But the damage was done, trust fractured, the bubble burst. Robert packed a bag, not leaving, but retreating to his side of the city. I need space. To breathe without your shadows. As April rains lashed the windows, the high tide of conflict crested. The board's decision dropped. John fired, effective immediately. No severance, no reference, a scarlet letter for his career. Reporters sniffed around. A local blog post titled, South Side Scandal. Teacher's Forbidden Fling? Going viral. Robert's name redacted, but the photo from the diner blurred. Incriminating sealed the narrative. John vanished for days. Phone dark. Robert's panic peaked at his door, pounding until a neighbor shushed him. No answer. Desperation drove him to the cabin. A solo pilgrimage up Highway 12. Snowmelt swelling creeks. He found John there, unshaven, staring into the cold hearth. You came. John's voice was a rasp. Robert crossed the threshold. Where else? You're my story, John. Incomplete without you. They rebuilt in fragments, talks by the window, hands clasped over lukewarm tea. But the world hammered at the door. Robert's mom, piecing clues from news clips, confronted him over dinner. That teacher? Baby, tell me it's not. Tears flowed, hers and his, a coming out wrapped in crisis. Mom, he's good to me. Sees me. Her hug was fierce, reluctant absolution. Then fight smart. For you, the climax brewed in May, graduation's shadow looming. A school board hearing, public, televised, John subpoenaed to testify, Robert as witness. The auditorium swelled with stakeholders. Parents clutching signs, protect our kids. Activists chanting equity slogans. Reporters with notepads primed. John took the stand first, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. I crossed lines, but not in exploitation. In love. Robert Ellis is no victim. He's a man of extraordinary depth, and our connection elevated us both. Gasps rippled. Robert's turn. Heart in throat. He faced the panel. Mr. Harlan didn't fail me. He freed me to write, to love, to be seen. The room erupted. Applause clashing with jeers. A microcosm of America's fractures. Outside, as they clasped hands in the parking lot, rain starting to fall, Robert whispered, we shattered it all. John pulled him close. And rebuilt better. Summer unfurled over Chicago like a hesitant truce, humidity thick as unresolved tension. John's firing made headlines. A blip in the education reform beat. Fodder for op-eds on systemic biases in discipline. He retreated to freelance editing gigs, cobbling a life from annotated manuscripts and late-night walks along the lake, where the water's lap mocked his aimless drift. Robert, graduated and unbound, awaited Northwestern's verdict. His days split between a lifeguard shift at the public pool and clandestine visits to the loft, now a sanctuary scarred by uncertainty. Their love, tempered by trial, deepened into something resilient, conversations stretching into dawn. Bodies entwined with a new gentleness, as if each touch warded off the ghosts. What's next for us? Robert asked one muggy night, sweat slick on the sheets, John's head pillowed on his stomach. John traced lazy circles on his hip. Next is you thriving. College, words that shake the world. Me, I'll follow, if you'll have me. Maybe adjunct somewhere quiet, or hell, Write that memoir I've been dodging. Robert chuckled, but anxiety gnawed. Follow? Like a shadow? John, I want you beside me, not trailing. The conversation unearthed old wounds. John's fear of being the older burden. Robert's dread of abandonment in the Ivy Towers. They vowed transparency. Weekly check-ins. No more secrets. But secrets have a way of festering. Unbeknownst to them, Sarah's remorse birthed a final act of contrition. A letter to the local paper. Anonymous. Defending John. The man wasn't a predator, he was human. In a system quick to judge. Grace is the real scandal. It ran buried on page A12. But ripple spread. Offers for interviews. A podcast invite from a queer education collective. Emboldened, John pitched a piece to The Atlantic, Teaching Beyond the Closet. A love story in red ink. Robert read the draft over his shoulder. Pulse quickening at the veiled truths. The F as folly. The planetarium kiss as cosmos. Publish it, he urged. Own our story. John hesitated, then hit send. Acceptance came swift, with edits that sharpened the blade. More on race. The intersectional minefield of their bond. Publication day dawned electric. Robert woke to notifications, friends texting links. His mom forwarding with a winking emoji. Campus buzz at Northwestern's orientation. Wait, you're the guy from the article. Not all praise. A few side eyes from activists decrying white savior vibes. But Robert held his ground, channeling Baldwin in dorm debates. Love isn't neat. It's messy. Defiant. John. Meanwhile, fielded calls, job offers from progressive charters, a TEDx slot in Milwaukee. But success soured when the past resurfaced. A Boston reporter, digging for dirt, unearthed the old scandal. Not mutual, but John's unrequited pursuit of that senior boy. A whisper campaign that painted him predator from the start. The twist? The boy, now a lawyer in his 30s, reached out, voice steady over the line. John, it's Alex. Saw the piece. For the record, it was me chasing you. They twisted it to protect the golden boy image. Clear your name. Vindication hit like summer lightning. John shared it with Robert over rooftop barbecue. City sprawl at their feet. Free, he toasted, clinking bottles. Robert's grin was luminous. We both are. That night, they danced to Coltrane on the fire escape, bodies swaying in sync. The skyline a chorus of distant lights. Yet conflict loomed, insidious. Robert's freshman year plunged him into a whirlwind, seminars on postcolonial lit. Queer theory that dissected power dynamics like their own. Sharp-witted and unapologetically gay. Flirted shamelessly. Your essay on hybrid identities? Revolutionary. Coffee to discuss. Robert demurred. Loyal, but the attention stirred doubts. Was he John's equal now, or still the wide-eyed kid? John sensed the shift during a weekend visit. Robert's dorm a chaos of posters and half-read tomes. Over pizza, he probed. That T.A. Eliot? He eyeing you. Robert's laugh was forced. Jealous. John's nod was honest. Terrified. You're blooming here, Robert. What if I wilt? Vulnerability cracked the facade. Leading to a raw exchange. John admitting therapy sessions for his savior complex. Robert confessing the pressure of being the success story for their narrative. They mended with action. A road trip south. Chasing Route 60 SIXS ghosts through Illinois farmlands to St. Louis's Arch. Motels with neon vacancy signs. Diners dishing pie and stories. John reading aloud from Kerouac. Robert countering with Ta-Nehisi Coates. One night in a Missouri hollow, under a meteor shower, John dropped to one knee, not proposal, but promise. Marry me? Not tomorrow, but when the world's ready. Or screw the world, when we're ready. Robert pulled him up, kiss sealing it. Yes. All in. Betrayal's echo returned via Marcus, Robert's old teammate, now at a D2 school. A call, voice laced with beer. Rob, heads up, saw your boy Harlan on some forum. Dude saying he's a groomer, linking old pics. It's blowing up. Robert's blood chilled. The Boston leak had twisted again. Alex's statement ignored, trolls amplifying the predator trope. John's phone exploded. Hate mail, death threats veiled as concern. John spiraled, holing up in the loft, blinds drawn. Robert drove through the night, arriving to find him amid takeout boxes, eyes hollow. It's happening again. The labels stick. Robert hauled him out, forcing a walk to the lake. Fight it. Like we did the hearing. John resisted. You fight. You're the future. I'm tainted. The chasm yawned, John's self-sabotage a mirror to Robert's freshman doubts. Crisis peaked at a campus pride event. Robert invited to panel on queer love in academia. John tagged along, incognito in the crowd. As Robert spoke, love taught me resilience, across lines of race, age, power, a heckler shouted. Like that teacher who failed you? Bet he taught you plenty. Laughter, cruel. Robert froze, then fired back. He gave me an A when it mattered. And a heart worth fighting for. Applause drowned the jeers. But backstage, John waited, tears streaking. You defended me. After everything, Robert cupped his face. Always. The turning point came unbidden. A documentary filmmaker, tipped by Sarah's letter, approached John for a feature, Forbidden Lessons, Romance, Race, and Redemption in the Classroom. Skeptical, they agreed to interviews, Robert's voice threading the narrative. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Filming sessions unearthed healing. John confronting his Boston ghosts on camera. Robert workshopping poems born of their fire. As fall leaves turned, Northwestern's acceptance solidified Robert's path. Scholarships flowing. John landed a visiting professorship at a small liberal arts college upstate. Close enough for weekends, far enough for breath. Their goodbye at Union Station was a symphony of aches. Hug lingering, promises whispered. Write me every day, Robert said. John smiled, boarding the train. Every word a love letter, but distance tested. Texts grew sparse. John's new life a whirlwind of syllabi and symposia. Robert, meanwhile, dove into activism, leading a black queer lit circle. Dating apps tempting in lonely hours. A hookup with Elliot the TA, fueled by gin and isolation, left him hollow, bodies clashing without souls. Guilt confessed over a tearful call. It was nothing. But I miss us. John's silence stretched, then broke. I pushed you away by leaving. Come home. Reunion at the cabin. Snow dusting the eaves once more. They arrived separately, tension thick as the chill. Words failed at first, apologies tumbling, hurts aired. Then, in the fire's glow, reconciliation. Slow, sacred, bodies rediscovering home. No more betrayals, John vowed. Ours or the world's. Robert nodded, tracing his lips. Just us. Human. Flawed. Whole. Winter's sequel brought not fracture, but fortitude. Robert's sophomore year sharpened his edges. Protests against campus microaggressions. A chapbook of poems published by a university press, titled Red Ink Revolutions. John's professorship bloomed into tenure-track whispers, his Atlantic piece evolving into a book deal, Erasing Expectations, a memoir of forbidden pedagogy. They co-authored a chapter, voices intertwining like vines, Robert's raw lyricism tempering John's introspective prose. Challenges persisted, subtle as frostbite. John's colleagues, wary of his baggage, tested boundaries with pointed questions. That student healthy now? Robert fielded his own gauntlet, dorm mates probing the older guy, dates fizzling when he invoked fidelity. Society's gaze lingered, a viral TikTok dissecting their story as problematic, racking views and vitriol. Yet each barb honed their armor. Date nights became rituals, virtual poetry slams, surprise visits with contraband cannoli. Spring renewal hit with a curveball. Robert's mom, remarried to a gentle widower from church, announced a move to Atlanta. For a fresh start, baby. But you'll visit. Robert's anchor uprooted. He leaned harder on John, flying upstate for unstructured weekends, hikes in the Adirondacks, where birch trees whispered approvals. One trail, overlooking a mist-shrouded valley, John stopped, ring box emerging from his pack. No knees this time. But the question stands. Marry me, Robert. Make our story legal, messy, eternal. Tears blurred the view. Yes, 1,000 times. The proposal, witnessed by warblers and wind, sealed their pact. Planning ensued small, defiant. A backyard ceremony in Chicago. Summer solstice. Guests a eclectic tribe of supporters. Marcus officiating with jock humor. Sarah as reluctant bridesmaid. Her amends a handmade quilt. But climax brewed in the ether. The documentary premiered at a queer film fest in Provincetown, a coastal enclave of rainbow flags and salt air. Forbidden lessons screened to a packed house, the room a pressure cooker of anticipation. Robert and John sat front row, hands clasped under the armrests, breaths synced. The film wove their arc masterfully, grainy diner footage intercut with interviews, Baldwin quotes underscoring racial reckonings, a haunting score of jazz piano. Q&A ignited the storm. A critic rose, voice dripping disdain, romanticizes grooming. Age gap, power imbalance, it's trauma porn. Murmurs swelled, phones lighting like fireflies. John stood, microphone trembling slightly. Call it what you will. But this isn't porn, it's truth. Love in America's crucible, where black and white, young and old, must navigate the same inferno. Robert followed, fire in his veins. I wasn't groomed. I was seen. And in seeing me, he saw himself. That's the shattering part. Not the scandal, but the humanity. The applause was thunderous. Detractors drowned. Post-screening reception buzzed. Offers for speaking tours. A Netflix option on the dock. But in their hotel room, overlooking the dunes, vulnerability resurfaced. What if they never stop? Robert murmured, waves crashing below. John pulled him to the balcony. They won't. But we do. We keep loving, loudly. Summer wedding dawned golden. The backyard, Robert's mom's borrowed plot, now lush with zinnias, transformed into a haven. string lights twinkling, a barbecue pit smoking ribs and vegan kebabs, a playlist blending Nina Simone and Frank Ocean. Guests mingled. John's estranged brother, thawing with a handshake. Robert's extended kin, some skeptical, others beaming, queer elders toasting resilience. Vows exchanged under an oak. Marcus's voice booming. Do you, John, promise to grade this life with grace, even when it's an F? Laughter rippled. John's response, eyes locked on Robert's. I do. And I'll rewrite every wrong. Robert's turn. John, you taught me words fail, but actions sing. I promise to be your chorus, your challenge, your home. Rings slid on, simple bands etched with a quill and football, sealing it amid cheers. Honeymoon was a road odyssey, Chicago to New Orleans, jazz haunts and bayou rambles, bodies and souls in perpetual motion. In a Marigny courtyard, under magnolia blooms, they danced to street buskers, the world fading to their rhythm. Years folded forward, a tapestry of triumphs and quiet storms. Robert's MFA birthed a novel, shattered grades, a semi-autobiographical gut punch earning accolades and backlash in equal measure. John's book hit bestseller lists, sparking a nonprofit for LGBTQ+ educators. They settled in a Brooklyn brownstone, adopting a rescue mutt named Baldwin, hosting salons where stories supplanted silence. Conflicts arose, John's midlife wanderlust clashing with Robert's grant deadlines, a health scare, John's arrhythmia, a whisper of mortality. But each weathered with the tools they'd forged, therapy doubles, weekend resets in the cabin, now their heirloom. The human core endured. Anniversaries marked with red-inked letters, football games where John cheered from the bleachers, literature classes where Robert guest lectured, their hands brushing mid-sentence. Betrayals? Transmuted to lessons. Sarah's a cautionary chapter, the troll's fuel for advocacy. In the end, their story wasn't conquest, but continuance, a testament to love's stubborn bloom in fallow ground. On a crisp autumn eve, years on, they stood on their stoop, watching fireflies mimic city stars. We shattered expectations, Robert said, arm around John's waist. John kissed his temple. And built something unbreakable. Humanity, after all, thrives not in perfection, but in the brave, battered pursuit of it.